Is repairing a fence really just like repairing your credit? Stick around because today I'm going to show you how it is. Hi there, I'm Stan Hartzheim with WH Home Loans and welcome to this episode of Wynot Wyoming, where we talk about all of the things related to Cheyenne, Wyoming, the surrounding areas, recreational activities, the real estate market, and even the home loans that it would take to get you living here with us. So today, I was just out here working on this old fence that is around my little barn. You might have seen it in some of my other videos. My father-in-law built this fence about 50 years ago, and as you can tell, it's pretty beat up. So I let it go way too long. I decided to come out and start tearing it down so that we could put up a new fence. And while I was out here, I kind of got to thinking, this is similar to the same types of steps that you would take if you need to rebuild your credit. Now, most of you already know, if you need to repair your credit, you're going to need to get rid of some of those bad things that might be on your credit report. To me, that's very similar to my fence project. I took the same first steps. I'm getting rid of some of the bad stuff, the old rotten wood, the posts that are kind of weak, and we're going to give ourselves a good starting point to rebuild. So if you need a little bit of help with any of these steps, go ahead and reach out to me. I'll give you some good advice. If you have things that are a little bit too bad, I might refer you out to a credit repair company. But a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, you can actually do yourself. So as I mentioned, getting rid of all of that bad stuff on your credit report is similar to the first step I took on my fence project, just tearing everything out, getting rid of the old rotten wood. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a problem. All I have left are these posts that are still stuck in the ground. And this is kind of like what you have after you get rid of a lot of those bad derogatory things from your credit report. You might only have a couple of things, or worse yet, no trade lines left on your credit report. And if you want to have a functioning fence or credit, we're going to have to start adding back in some good positive credit things to your report. And if you want this credit or fence to be a good sturdy fence, you're going to even need to replace some of these posts as well. And I'll tell you what, if you have some things like a bankruptcy or a foreclosure on your credit report, that's going to be kind of like if some of these posts are stuck in concrete. It's going to take extra work and time to get those out. But rest assured, on your credit report, those types of events do cause less damage, or they're considered less stringently as time goes on. Hold on to your horses, stick with me. We're going to learn how to start the rebuilding process next. So what are these fence rails that we need to add back in, or credit repair tips? You like my analogies? I don't know. Once you get rid of the old stuff, there's really just three principles to rebuilding credit. Number one, we need to build good history. Number two, we need to manage our utilization. And number three, we need to make sure that we manage our payments on time, every time. And with regards to your credit, that bottom rail is going to be your payment history. So the good news with payment history is we're really focusing on the more recent past, the last 12 to 18 months. Things that were older than that really start to diminish. They don't hurt you quite as much. A friend of mine named Scott was doing some informational videos on credit repair, and he made this analogy. He said, your credit payment history is not like a permanent tattoo on your shoulder. It's more like a bruise. And so as soon as you quit punching yourself in the arm, that bruise will heal up and your credit score will start to improve pretty quickly. Another thing to note is that this new recent payment history will really start to eliminate the old bad history relatively quickly. Again, we're mostly focused on the recent past. And one way that you can get that credit history or that payment history to reflect more positive payments is by adding yourself to someone else's account as an authorized user. So if you happen to have a friend, a significant other, or a spouse that you know has really good credit, has an account that's in good standing and has a long history, you might ask them if they're willing to add you to that account. The first month that reports on your credit, you're going to get 12 to 15 years worth of history and hopefully good performance. So that tip also works really good for you parents out there. If you have teenagers, you can actually do the same thing. When I had teenagers, we added them to our accounts. We just didn't tell them. They didn't even know they had that available credit, right? Because we didn't want to risk them running up our bills, but we did want them to reap the rewards of our good payment history. So go ahead, add them as an authorized user. When they get a little bit older, they're in their 20s or whatever, then they've established a couple of trade lines of their own, they've got good credit, you can take them back off. You don't have to leave them on there for years, but that's a way to help them get a leg up on the credit game early on in life. And trust me, they'll thank you for it eventually. Maybe not today. I've raised teenagers too, and I get it. They're not always appreciative in the moment. Something about, I don't know, they know everything and we're stupid, at least until they're in their mid-20s, and then they come around and they go, oh, thank you so much for all the help you gave me when I was younger, and a little bit obstinate. So don't hold your breath, but eventually they will thank you. For now, we're going to move on to what is our second step, or our middle rail of our fence, and that is our credit utilization. With regards to utilization, you want to make sure that you're staying in the sweet spot, which if you have bad credit, you really need to be at 8 to 10% of whatever your credit limit is. Once you have a good score and you can go to that higher threshold, you just want to make sure that you never go above 25 to 30%, not even for a day. I'll share an example. A friend of mine had a Kohl's card. It was a $500 limit. She went in, she bought a bunch of clothes, $400 worth. I think it was back to school sales or something like that. Walked out to the parking lot, made a payment while she was in her car for the full amount that she had just spent. The problem was the credit statement cut off that day. The expense posted to it, but the payment didn't post for a couple more days. So on her credit report, it showed 80% utilization. Her credit score plummeted, and it took months for her score to rebound, even though she made the payment that same day. So best practice is do not go above that threshold, even for a minute. Use $50 on your Kohl's card, get your Kohl's cash, and then use your debit card for everything else. Utilization is key. Another way that you can help your utilization, or the ratio, percentage of use, is to call your creditors. If you've had reasonably good history with them, you can ask them if they'll raise your limit. And sometimes you might go from that $500 limit up to who knows what. Now, a little tip I'll share with you is, when you call them, ask them what you're qualified for, or what you're eligible for to get your credit raised. Because they're going to say, well, what do you want? And if you say, well, I don't know, $700, that's all you're going to get. But if you let them dictate the terms, because it's already in their computer, they know what they're willing to do, they might bump that up to $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500, and now that same $400 utilization is at 30%. So that's a really good tip if you qualify to get that utilization percentage down a little bit lower, okay? So now we're moving on to our top rail. When we were doing our tear out, we left as many good posts as we could. So some of you that are old enough to think back to the movies of the 80s will remember a movie called Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And he had a great line in there, and he said, so I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of,
life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
And I think that is true of our financial lives as well. Sometimes there's a calamity that happens just in the blink of an eye, and it causes some detrimental impact to your credit. And I just want you guys to know, there's no judgment here. I don't care if you have bad credit. That credit score doesn't define you. But you do have to know that it hinders your ability to get good interest rates on car loans, and maybe even qualify at all for a mortgage. So we are going to need to take the steps to go through the process to tear out the bad stuff, add back in the good stuff, and get that credit score repaired. I'm so glad that you decided to stop by today, hang out with me in the wind, watch me work on this fence, and listen to me ramble on about credit. I hope you found it helpful, and if you did, hit that subscribe button. I always want you to be able to catch all of our videos. They're not all about mortgages. Sometimes we talk about the fun stuff to do around town, or a new local restaurant, establishment to visit. Sometimes we give you helpful tips like today. If you have any questions at all, I'm Stan, your mortgage man. You can reach me by text, phone, or email anytime you want. I'm happy to answer questions for you. It's my mission to help you guys find a way to make Cheyenne your home too, because we love it here. I hope you have a great day.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.